Welcome to Lifting Leaders Podcast, where we are unleashing leader possibilities to make a better world. I'm Crystal Roberts, and together with Trisha Ryan, we're diving deeper into some of the complexities of the world's most critical challenges and exploring innovative ways of navigating through them.
Through interviews with experts and leaders just like you, we're exploring what it takes to thrive as a leader today and examining new ways of thinking about how to creatively lead into a more equitable, socially responsible, and sustainable future. And the future starts now.
Hi, Trisha. How are you doing?
I am great. How about you, Crystal?
I'm great. I'm really excited that we have just a fantastic guest with us today. And she came to us actually through the Hudson community. And we have a lot of listeners we know from that community. So we wanted to just give a shout out to them. Hello to the Hudson community, the coaches out there.
Hi, our family, right?
Yes. And speaking of family, so it's actually our guest's daughter who went through the certification process to become an executive coach. Yeah. But following in her mom's footsteps of being a coach. So isn't that cool? There's family there with being a coach.
We love the whole generation thing, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great? Four generations of Hudson coaches.
Yeah. So our special guest today is Marita Decker, and she just recently published her book, Outsmart Doubt: The Data-Driven Analysis of Confidence Erosion for Women at Work and Breakthrough Techniques for Sustainable Career Confidence.
So timely.
It's really timely, a really, I think, important book as we think about what we're trying to do with the podcast around unleashing leader possibilities to make a better world.
Yes.
And we think about how important it is for people to be able to show up fully as themselves, and this book helps people with that.
I agree with you, and I think it is timely. It's something we have not touched on in the past, with our episodes about, boosting women's confidence. And I see this all the time. And in fact, I am a woman who works in business, and I've been there. And so to me, it's just so important that we address this. It has been ignored or pushed under a rug for so many years and my entire career. So as I was reading the book, I was actually identifying with a lot of the scenarios that were in the book, thinking, wow, where was this, 25, 30 years ago? But it's amazing. It's an amazing book in that sense. It's the way it's mapped out. It is really a good guidebook. It's a roadmap. Yeah. And I would love to see this actually get out into workforces and really start changing the way women look at themselves and how they approach the world, right?
Yeah. So I'm eager to dig in. And before we do that, I wanted to share a little bit about Maria. So people, of course, they can look her up on LinkedIn and, all those places. But I loved the way that she described herself in her book. And so I'm going to use that as the bio.
Lovely.
So she says, when it comes to my career journey, if there was a curriculum in hard knocks, I would have a PhD. And I thought that was lovely. I think a lot of us who are at this point in our career, in the sort of last stages of our career, our middle stages of our career, probably have experienced some of these hard knocks as well. Across the big consulting firms, I achieved top positions, but at significant personal costs. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. As an entrepreneur, I've done competent, consistent, respectful business outreach, only to achieve a response rate close to 0%. As a social media influencer, a total failure. I love that. It turns out that entrepreneurs without social media are doomed. So my story is simple. Marita Decker, executive coach, leadership strategist, expert facilitator, PhD, School of Hard Knocks. So then she also goes on to share a few more traditional things. Graduated undergraduate and graduate school simultaneously in just 4 years. So that's not really so standard. But
sorry, that's a little crazy. But okay.
Joined a consulting firm and was nominated partner in the shortest possible time frame, practically impossible for a woman back then. Women represented 0.003% of the partners when I was nominated. Directed the global operations of digital technology when digital was in its infancy. Opened a new business technology program with 8 tenured faculty in Northwestern University. Launching a master's degree in cognitive science, which is a forerunner of AI, which I thought was super interesting. Founded an ed tech business and successfully secured first round funding. And founded a second business, leadership consulting, which I still proudly lead and enjoy. And the other thing, which is really relevant to this book as well, is the research piece. And one of the reasons why I loved this book, I love to read and be able to recommend things that have some research and some kind of grit around them.
Yes.
And so she's been working with the team for the past 5 years to unpack the drivers of doubt and dissect the confidence erosion that plagues women at work. Yeah, so super excited about this conversation with you. Marita, welcome to Lifting Leaders Podcast.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Absolutely.
I'm so excited that you're here. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I love unpacking good books, and I think this is a good book. So welcome.
Thanks.
So, yes, we will just dive in with our first question. And we ask all of our guests this question. Tell us your story.
Well, you have some of it from the bio that's in the book, but the story that I love to tell is that I'm a career mom, right? And I loved both parts of my life, right?
Yeah.
I loved my work, and I absolutely loved being a mom. I have 3 daughters, and they are like the best part of life. So my hope is to let everyone have that, right? And to hold on to work for those who want to work as moms, because it can be so fulfilling, at least for me, so fulfilling.
Yeah.
But I think the interesting thing about my story is how unexpected things collide. Like I had a wonderful life that funneled from consulting to a long-term partnership with Harvard that focused on leadership development and became a pivot from my consulting work to leadership development. And then I began to practice as a leadership strategist and facilitator and coach. And now I work as a coach, and all that is great. That was my work. But my work was shaped because I was literally a soccer mom. And I had to drive carpool and spend hours watching training and sitting at the sport. And I learned through my very athletic daughters the overlap between leadership and elite sport and how much leaders need to know their strengths and have effective routines and discipline and mindsets to optimize for their success.
Yeah.
So my work experience and my mom experience shaped my current practice. So that's why I work from such deep research, which I call career science. And I focus on helping clients build their career fitness, which is the mindsets and habits for enduring leadership impact. So when I think about helping women at work and working moms at work, and we think about this notion of mindsets and habits and fitness to be able to do everything that's on our plate, that's literally about strength training and resilience and confidence. So that's kind of the story behind who I am and how I work right now.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. You can't go through life as a parent and not be influenced. And there's so many great lessons, just as you were talking about, watching them grow up and how they grow and develop, and the models around coaching. And Pete Carroll was one of the authors in one of our they call it one of the first coaching books, one of the actual like executive leadership coaches learn from. Right. So yeah, I love that. The connection to the soccer and watching your kids be coached in soccer and elite sport and all those mindsets. There's a lot of overlap. Yeah. Very cool.
There is. I mean, it is hard to have full-time work. It is hard to be a leader. It takes that inner discipline and resilience to show up well every day, right? For the people that need you to show up well. And you have to practice the wellness and the strength building in order to do it. And confidence is one core muscle in that whole routine, to me.
You know, you said resilience, and I think of that all the time because I'm constantly talking about that, it seems, at work when we have people who have taken a fall. They've had a failure, or they've stumbled in their career, or they've said something that has been a hiccup for the rest of the leaders in an area. And I think, it's not easy to build that mental muscle, but it is something that is what really makes leadership a lot of times is, how many times do you bounce back and learn from that and move forward? So, it's that
100%.
It's interesting concept, and I think that's one that I'd love to hear it from other people rather than have my clients hear it from me all the time, because they think, oh, Tricia, she's just going to talk about resilience again. So why this book and why now?
So I think, COVID gave me the space to actually pull the research together. It had been a project that had been ongoing. Like, you take leadership, but I work with leaders, all types of leaders, but certainly my heart is most akin to women as leaders and to working moms as leaders. So my research was in that area. But why now? I think my motivation is kind of a combination of frustration and hope and data. So frustration that the women of today, my daughters included, your daughters included, they face the same problems or worse than I did in my early career. And that just, it seems unconscionable that it's still this difficult, right? And it may not be in the small organizations or in the startups or in the self-run organizations, but certainly in the large corporate settings that trend towards the traditional underpinnings, the daily dynamics work against women and other marginalized groups. And it's hard. So that frustration. And the data, because my hope was to take what are the taglines, like backlash, glass ceiling, glass cliff, the things that make it easy to skirt around the issues, and look for data and concrete behaviors that could drive change. So that's what the research was about. And hope is that I get into organizations because of the data. And with the data, leaders listen and feel like they know what to do differently. Because when you break down something that just has a tagline attached to it, or is as nebulous as the term of confidence or contribution, and it has like working parts, and you see which one you have to actually fix first, that becomes an actionable problem that they can fix. And so I'm hoping that the data helps us, drive some systemic change, which actually will make life easier so that women can gain greater traction and have the careers that they should have to enjoy and fulfill themselves.
I think this is so interesting, and it's really unique, in a sense, because the whole topic of confidence, and, it seems like a fluff word in some ways. It's not at all, but it doesn't feel as concrete when you're in a business setting that, confidence, well, it's something you just have to get, and it's not easy. So the data, I love that you put data to that, because it enables us to take a look at it from a different perspective now and say, no, you can actually measure this and you can actually do something with it. So yeah, it's, to me, that is exciting. Very exciting.
Thank you.
So when we think about the research, what was the most surprising thing that you learned from that?
Crystal. So, the starting point for me was the work of Katie Kay and Claire Shipman, and they wrote the book, The Confidence Code. So they had done a survey of research in advance, and it gave us a starting point to dive in. So their book says that confidence is the reaction of action. Okay, and that was a light bulb for me. Because if confidence is the reaction of action, in other words, you can't think your way through confidence. It's not a feeling. It's not a trait. It's not a characteristic. It is like an athlete. It is a step forward, right? And with each step, confidence will grow and multiply. And their work was so convincing because they spoke with industry, corporate leaders, athletes, government, they spoke with so many people, and their hypothesis was strong and their proof points were stronger. So when I took that, that was the thing to say, okay, if it is action, what are the actions? Like, so that was the starting point. And then our research said, what is the evidence that we can compile about what actions are needed? And so we worked on a survey that would look at the actions, the mindsets and behaviors behind the Shipman and K work. And we looked at it across 500 women in the US, Europe, and Asia. So that's how we got to a model of the mindsets and habits of confidence in action.
Interesting. So, can you tell us a little more about those mindsets and habits, what those actually are?
Thank you. So oftentimes, Tricia, as you said, confidence is seen as a nebulous term, right? It comes up on someone's performance review. She just lacks confidence. She just needs more confidence. But no one actually says what that would look like or feel like. And interestingly enough, when you are told you lack confidence, that makes it worse, not better, because you don't know what you're trying to
Where
fix.
do you start?
Right?
Yep.
Right. Right. So our work, we found about 35 behaviors that people would say, if you had these or you lacked these, had a relationship to confidence. And so on the assessment, you're scaling yourself on 35 things. And they fall into what we would call 6 boosters and 6 blockers. So if you have the boosting behaviors, you are seen as having more confidence. And if you hold on to the blocking behaviors, right, you show up as having less confidence. So here are the 6 boosters. First, about yourself. If you have self-belief and self-image, that and positive self-image, that is contagious. So if you begin from a place where you like who you are at work, that shows and that comes across. But that has to be deliberate,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then the second thing is to have specific career aspirations and targets, to know where you want to go. And what I find in my coaching is that a lot of women are successful organically. The next promotion comes their way, or they just get to the next level, but then they end up in a spot that isn't necessarily of their direct control. And it may not be the most fulfilling spot for them. And also, if you don't have your own aspirations and targets, you're not necessarily in control of your brand. And when you're not in control of your brand, you're like not as strong in presenting yourself with the self-belief and the self-image behind you.
Yeah.
So the first boosters of confidence are all about knowing yourself and who you want to be at work and liking that. Now, the next 3 boosters are about how you're showing up at work. So the first one is being ready for the pace. So specifically the conversational banter, right? When things get heated at work, the pace of conversation picks up and the interruptions pick up. And you have to be able to stay in the conversation and contribute your ideas in order to come across with confidence. Because the pace picks up, you can't back out. You can't take the conversation offline, right?
Yeah.
So this notion of playing tough, like a boy plays on the playground, as opposed to raising your hand in the classroom, is very important confidence behavior for women to show at work. And related to that is the notion of practicing quicker decisions, because leaders make decisions all day long, and women have a beautiful tendency to be very inclusive in their decision making, but it is viewed as slowing us down in decision making. And so we often, again, look like we're slow, which looks like we lack confidence, and that is a matter of pace. And then the last booster is something you've already mentioned, which is being comfortable with your mistakes and being resilient from them, right? So the notion of knowing that there are risks and taking them, knowing that things will not always go your way, and being able to be okay with, yeah, that didn't work out so well, but I can keep going forward,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's okay. Everyone's going to make a mistake. So those are the 6 boosters, the mindsets and habits that will keep you feeling confident at work, knowing yourself and feeling comfortable with the pace and the risks that happen normally in the workplace.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side are the blockers, and these are mindsets and habits that are very characteristic of women, especially. So we have to overcome the potential blockers of dwelling and over personalizing. Women tend to dwell more, much, much more. 57% of women will dwell to the point of being stopped in their tracks at more than one point in their career. That's a big number because we overthink things, we connect things, and we go backwards. And that's based on our cognitive makeup, it's neuroscience. So we have to break the habit of dwelling and overthinking, time block, move on. We also have to, blocker number 2, lower perfectionism and everythingism. We want to do everything so well, and we want to do everything that we're asked to do. And it is not possible. And so that circles back to this notion of brand. What is it that you want to do that is fulfilling for you? Do all of that as best you can, and then find a way to let other people do the other things and support them in that, right? So you don't have to be perfect at everything all the time. Then the next blocker to overcome is the tendency to be timid. And I've seen this so many times, especially with women in the STEM industries, where men dominate and men have a tendency to interrupt, and then women have a tendency to stay quiet. But we cannot stay quiet because our brain power is needed. We were hired to make a contribution. You can't get recognized if you don't make a contribution. So the only way to do that is to speak up. And I know women get in their heads, they dwell that they don't have the right words, the perfect timing, right? So dwelling and perfectionism lead to timidity. And yet those things don't matter. Get your idea on the table. Be in the conversation. Keep up with the pace, because that is what's required to get recognized at work and to make the contribution that will make you feel engaged and will drive the impact that you're capable of. And then we all have to overcome the need to be liked. Women really want to be liked and included and have friends. And that work is work. Work is work. And it's a hard line to understand. And as you increase levels of leadership, it's harder to make those shifts, but it's so important to be able to distinguish the need to be liked from the need to lead, right? And then overcoming gender worry, imposter syndrome, and self-doubt are the back end of the blockers, because sometimes we can be our own worst enemies, our own self-fulfilling prophecy, right? We're not going to be able to do it because we're a woman. We're not going to be able to do it because of X, Y, or Z. And one of the things that I've learned is most important in my career is that you have to ask. We all have to ask, not for just what's available, but for what we want. And in asking for what we want, we never know what door is going to open. And I think that is the best way to get over the last blocker of self-doubt and gender worry, because now is the time. So we have to ask, and we have to support each other in doing that. So interesting, 6 boosters, 6 blockers. And confidence, anyone's individual confidence is a combination of those boosters and blockers, and they are dynamic. Different things will be high or low at different times, but knowing yourself in those terms allows you to take the right actions at the right times, and then your confidence builds accordingly. What do you think?
Wow. To me, it flips everything I learned as a child up on its head. Things like you do need to be liked at work. Make sure you make friends, because that is how you bring people in. That's how you bring them along and have them, you inspire them. If they like you, you spend a third of your life with these people, that kind of thing. And I think just listening to these last 6, I was thinking, wow, it is a game changer it's going to be a game changer for a lot of women, to think that they've been told that they shouldn't be as aggressive as it sounds like they should be, or they shouldn't be looking at the world in terms of, this is just my job. It's my business. I have to excel in business. And then it makes me wonder, are we changing the way we react to our environment, or are we changing the way we approach things to match what men do, so that we can be more accepted in that workplace? I'm not sure if I have an answer for that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I don't feel that in my own work and in my own coaching. I don't feel that when it comes to the question of separating being liked from getting work done. I often help women understand that, like, let us put the problem on a piece of paper between us, because this is about each of us contributing to solve this problem. It's not about what's happening between you and me right now. It's about you contributing to this problem and me contributing to this problem, so we can move the problem forward.
Right.
And that is the notion of getting the work done together, as opposed to worrying about whether or not I'm getting liked at work.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does. It's
right. So literally move to a flip chart, or move to the whiteboard, or put a piece of paper between you, so that you can cut through the relationship issue that is clouding you right now, right? Getting in your way. And I think that helps a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting notion, what you're talking about, because, and your question, I liked your question about, is this about helping women be successful in the current condition, or is it about helping women be their full selves? And I think it's complicated. And I was thinking about a guest that we had on right near the beginning of when we started the podcast. She was actually talking about something very similar, and actually was developing an assessment to help women understand in the current condition, the current culture and environment that we work in, how to be successful. So very similar as far as that. And I think at the same time, we have to figure out, how do we continue to create cultures where people at work, where everyone can be successful. So I think it's part of the kind of the reality checking. It's like, how do you build confidence today in the current environment in which you're working? And sometimes that means we do have to shift a little bit. Yeah.
This could be a good book club, unpack in a book club, with just women, because I think it would really spark a lot of conversation about this. And we'd see, probably, if you had 8 people in the room, you'd probably see 8 different views of that. But yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And what is interesting is when, like, for instance, I was mentioning that oftentimes women in STEM environments show up as being timid, a lot of dynamics going on, but men tend to talk more. They also tend to interrupt more. They also tend to interrupt women more than they interrupt men. So consequently, all those factors are working in a STEM environment. But when you look at the data and you can tell all the women in STEM, you're all showing up as too timid. How can we work on that together? You can create an ally dynamic among the women engineers. Then you can take the data to the leaders and say, leaders, do you realize you're missing 40% of the contribution from your female engineers? So your job is to tell your managers to ask more of the women, to slow the conversation on the male side of the table so that the women have more opportunity to speak up, to ask the women for more details. And the data allows that conversation to happen. And then the managers say, oh, I get it. That makes perfect sense. I can do that. Like I wouldn't have seen that. I wouldn't have known to do that. I had no idea that was happening. Now I do. So that's been an interesting opportunity to drive more change in some organizations.
Yeah. And, what I want to say is just to tell the men to shut the hell up. I mean,
Yes.
There oftentimes I do get a question like, can't we just have the men change? And I'm like, that would be ideal, but that is not happening anytime soon, as we can see from the frustration that got us to this place in the first place, right? No,
Well, and
that's
I think in your book you do allude to the fact that women have a broader view of things. We take a look at the bigger picture, and men just kind of like plow forward. And I don't know that they could actually expand their thinking that much without a lot of prompting.
Well, and I think that's our role as leaders,
Yes,
right?
it is.
Our role of leaders is to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to bring their whole self and can make a positive contribution. So if you find yourself in a situation, and other women need to also be opening the avenue for that as well, so that when we hear men and women as allies hear people being talked over, that we bring it forward. We say, hey, Marita was talking and I'd like to hear what she has to say. Can we please let her finish her thought? Or, you've been really quiet for this meeting. Is there anything that you want to contribute? So I do think it's working at both buckets.
I think awareness is key, and there are a lot of women who just have not ever thought of this. They've just gone through, and it's almost like on autopilot, worked through their career and not really thought much about it. They think this is the way it always is, and they find whatever moment of happiness they can find in their jobs, that thread, right?
Yeah.
And they plow forward without thinking about it. I don't know that they're necessarily satisfied with their careers, but they navigate a career of some type. And so they probably wouldn't even naturally think of having another woman's back in a meeting to make sure that they had their voice, heard.
Yeah.
So, but that to me is like a challenge right there, to get this kind of information out there in the world, because I think the more women, because of the way we think, I think the more women that know about stuff like this, the more we would see a collective response, or one that is a lot more supportive, for other women.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's information. I think that you always have a choice on what you do with it. Do you want to shift and be seen a little differently in the workplace, right, wrong, or indifferent? This is some information for you to kind of, as you're talking about that self-awareness, right? Well, this is how I'm coming across. Do I want to shift that? Sometimes it doesn't feel fair. We are in the world that we're in. And as leaders, we can help work to shift that so that people, and I see a lot of issues here, not issues, but a lot of similarities, I think, when we think about equity and intersectionality, as people are trying to create environments where everyone can be successful. Thinking about, women are one piece of that, but then also people of color and LGBTQ.
And you actually touched on that in your you touched on that in your research. About, it wasn't just about white non-Hispanic women, but it was also about women of color. And to me, that was just super fascinating. I have a question for you around data.
Yeah.
And I thought, and so here it is. The statement that you made in your book that really resonated with me was that you found in your research that we don't focus on the positive evidence and our achievements to date. For the 90% that is working, we over-index on the 10% that is difficult, which blows my mind, but you're right, and use that to fuel our doubt and stifle our dreams. Doubt is not the fuel of winners. So where does doubt come from?
Great question, Tricia. Great question. So, doubt is, I think of doubt as the brain's voice of caution. it's like the warning light on your dashboard. So it's an automatic safety mechanism to steer you away from danger or risk. So your brain doesn't distinguish between the bark of an attacking dog or the bark of an attacking supervisor. They both cause you to be concerned about your safety and to question your next action, right? So if confidence is the reaction of action, you can see how the barking gets in the way, right? And our brain really can't distinguish that. So it goes into the same kind of, it's not necessarily in fight or flight mode. I would cause that an imposter syndrome, right? When your doubt gets so bad that you're in imposter syndrome. But when you have this doubt, the warning light is on, like beep, 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 be careful. And to me, for women, I believe the neuroscience and our social conditioning cause doubt to be greater for women than it is for men. Because of the way that we're wired, we don't move past doubt. So men have more testosterone. Testosterone fuels risk taking. Their warning light goes on and they're like, oh, great, risk. Let's go, let's go. Women say, risk? Oh, no. Risk could connect to past failure or future worry, right? It connects to mistakes, embarrassment, vulnerability, shame. And for women, we begin to freeze because we make doubt big. So literally, if no one ever read any more of the book, the title says it all. We can outsmart doubt because it is no more than a warning light. And people that we know all the time outsmart doubt, right? Athletes outsmart doubt all the time. A tennis player isn't without doubt when they step onto a match. They're worried. Is the other player stronger? Did I get enough sleep? Do I have enough food? Is my backhand going to be good enough? But they take a step and they find their groove. And every woman in every work situation has to do exactly the same thing. Like have enough calm before the interaction so they can take a breath, take a step, and find their groove. Just outsmart that doubt. That's the whole point.
That is like so clear. Thank you. Wow.
It's in the movement. It's in the
Yeah.
forward motion that the confidence comes. That's what I'm hearing you say.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Yeah. So when we think about that forward movement, what are some of the actions, or maybe your top 3 actions that people can take as an individual to outsmart doubt? What are some of those actions?
So if we broke it down to 3 actions, Crystal, it would be first awareness that doubt is an automatic response, right? So when it comes, just know that this happens to everyone. It's part of just who you are, how our bodies naturally work, and it has nothing to do with your competence for the situation because the brain doesn't know that you already prepped for the meeting or that you already know this person, right? Or that the brain has no idea how ready you are. It just knows that the last time you were in this room, something went wrong. And so you're walking into the room and having that kind of auto response of, oh, this room again? I never liked this room. But that doesn't mean that you're not ready for the meeting here. So step number 1, it's an automatic response and you can get around that. Number 2 is reframe to move forward. So literally, I have this feeling of doubt. It's causing my hands to sweat, my breath to be short, right? My heart to race. And you just say, hey, my caution coach is speaking up. And thank you for that, but I've got this. I've got this. The warning light is on. The gas tank is low, but I still can make it, right? I don't have to stop here. I'm prepared. I'm trained. I'm ready. So that reframe to move forward. And then the last thing is one small step until you find your groove, one step after the next step. And sometimes that's the hardest thing because we can get through the Okay, it's doubt. Okay, I can reframe. But what actually can I do? Like, I don't know if this has happened to either of you, but even for me now, sometimes someone says, "Can you just introduce yourself?" And you like take a breath, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
where do I start now for this group? Right?
Right.
And and you need to figure out, okay, the first thing you say is, the second thing you say is, here's how you move forward. And the more that you can break down any task and just start, you will naturally keep going. You just will. The momentum will take over. So be aware that doubt is automatic. It is not a problem of yours, and it is not related to your competence. Reframe to move forward and take a small step till you found your
Mm-hmm.
groove. That's what I would say.
That's great.
Great.
So, what can we as leaders of women do to help support all of our team members to be successful,
Mm.
to achieve their dreams?
So I hope that leaders can be more thoughtful about the notion that doubt is real. Like coaches understand for athletes that they will have doubts. So coaches understand the importance of like a ramp up routine before an athlete hits the court
Mm.
or a runner's going to take the track, right? They understand like leave them alone, let them have their music, let them have their podcast, let them have the mantra that they have to keep saying. But I think in the workplace, our male leaders don't experience doubt as readily, so they don't have an empathy for when it hits some of the females or more marginalized people.
Yeah.
And yet leaders can have such a big impact.
Hmm.
So a simple question like, "Hey, I know this is a big meeting. What would worry you? Let's talk that through." Like take the worry off the plate and put it to the side. Or if you're a leader and you know that someone has a tendency to be timid, you can help them practice how to share their input and stay in the conversation because you can actually direct them about what's important for them to be saying. I'm going to count on you to share this. I love the work that you're doing here, and I want the group to know.
Yeah.
Please cover these three things in the meeting. That positioning and framing, that permission is all anyone needs to kind of overcome, to open the gate
Right.
so they can begin to speak up, right? Or if they have a tendency toward perfectionism, you can see that in your employees. And managers love that
Mm-hmm.
because we know someone else has the detail for us. And yet, if you have an employee who's a perfectionist, they will burn out. And eventually that's going to work against you. So you can help someone overcome being a perfectionist by asking them for their working draft, getting them to collaborate earlier,
Oh,
helping them seek feedback earlier. There are specific things a leader can do to lower the bar, to get rid of the blockers, right? Which will increase someone's confidence to contribute earlier,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And all of that is going to work synergistically to outsmart doubt and improve contribution.
Yeah. I love that. When you're talking about a leader and sort of asking that question about, how can I support you? What does support look like? I love that question. I think of a story when I was presenting at an executive team meeting, and my boss, of course, was there because she was on the executive team. And I realized I didn't have a copy of something, and I can't remember if it was an agenda or something, but she had her own. And she just, without a blink, she could see something was going on and just handed me hers. And
Mm.
it was like, that's all it took. It was like I was off and running. And it was just such an act of kindness, and it said, I have your back and I trust you. And, I'm here to support you. She didn't even say a word. Yeah, it was really cool.
That's really
It could be as simple as that too. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be something where the leader thinks about, okay, what am I going to do with this person today? It could be as natural as just, looking at body language and seeing how people are reacting to things, or what a person may be showing that they're feeling before a meeting. So that,
Yeah. So one of our last questions before we jump into our hope questions is, what do you hope our listeners take away from this discussion today? What do you want them to know in their bones? And one of the things I hope you talk a little bit about, because I think it's so incredible, is the assessment. And that comes as part of the book when you buy the book. Isn't that, I think that's right?
Yeah, so that's interesting. And every reader or every listener should know about that. That's a great idea. So there is an assessment with the book so that in 10 minutes, you can sign on, answer 35 or 40 questions, and that will give everyone a profile on those 6 boosters or blockers and generate a report that says, if you are low on these boosters, here are a few tips to help you increase the boosters so you can automatically feel a sense of confidence. And if you are high on these blockers, here are ways to diminish the blockers so that you are not fighting your own perfectionism or dwelling, and you can get out of your way to feel more joy at work. So that assessment is available, and we would love everyone to take it in the spirit of helping people gain the confidence to outsmart doubt at work and to find a career that is personally fulfilling. So definitely know that.
Yeah.
And there's 2 things. In the short term, doubt is a momentary thing that you should be able to outsmart. And even the best in their field, like Serena Williams, sits down in between a tennis match and is reading her own booklet to tell her that her backhand is strong or that she prepped something for the specific player in this match. She has written notes to herself to tell herself that she can get through this opponent. And she's like the top of the top in tennis, right?
Yeah.
right.
Taylor Swift talks to herself in the mirror before she takes the stage to tell herself she's going to be good enough for this particular audience. Taylor Swift has to talk to herself to outsmart doubt. So everyone has to do it. So we all have to do it, right?
Yeah.
And then the long term is that confidence is more like a muscle than it is like anything else. And just like your strength, if you're not building it, you might lose it. So it takes every day to hear the doubt and talk back to it and keep moving forward, and to have a mantra to tell yourself, I've got this. I've got this. I'm building my confidence today, so that we're not slipping back and then find ourselves disengaged.
Yeah.
So take the assessment, talk back to doubt, and build your confidence strength. Please walk away with those things.
Great advice.
So I think that you were talking to us about potentially some extra goodies for coaches. Is there anything there that you might want to share?
Well, I think actually the book itself is the resource that we put together for the coaches.
Got it.
So every person who takes the assessment, the tech for the assessment generates a personalized report. But the book has the research underpinnings to help a coach debrief the assessment with the robustness that they would need. So while not everyone has time for the book, they would have time for the assessment report.
Yeah.
But a coach can just help equip people with more depth if they have the
Love
book.
that. Yeah, thank you for
but
that.
I hope people will take time for the book because it's got a lot of great information. I love the background where it actually maps out why you put that in there. And I think it makes all of the tips and recommendations going forward fall into place. I need to know that something has some science behind it most of the time. I really feel like I don't want to trust something just because someone says something. No offense, it's just the way my head works. But to be able to see that you've unpacked it through some kind of research and that you've quoted that, I think that it's very helpful for people who are like me or like Crystal. Crystal is that way. She's even more than I am, actually. Wants the evidence-based stuff, and I think it's really important to have that. And for other coaches to see that, I think would be a real game changer. I think they might use your assessment more often, actually. So
Thank you.
we have some questions that we ask every one of our guests, and it has to do with hope. And we've been doing research on hope for the last year, and we're hoping to use that research in the future for either some type of publication that might help inspire other people. But I'm going to just roll some questions out to you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And that is, first one is, where do you see signs of hope in the world today?
That is a big question, a hard question, right? I don't know that I have a good answer for that, Trisha. I certainly get overwhelmed by the constant barrage of big problems in the media, right?
Yes.
Particularly worried about the gun violence and the environmental issues. And I think for me, I am turning more to my individual connections to find joy through individual people and what they're doing. So I think I'm increasing the time that I'm connecting in person with others and staying away from media to refresh my sense of good in the world.
Okay. So that kind of goes into the next question, which is, how do you sustain hope for yourself?
Yeah, I think it all goes together. In our family, we had this notion that we all had to use our talents to make the world a better place. And so my girls would tell you I said that too many times. And I say it still over and over again. But when I talk to individuals now in person and I see what they're doing to make the world a better place, that renews my sense of hope, because many small things can have an exponential impact. And at least that's my hope.
So how do you engage or inspire others to be hopeful?
Interesting question. I think more time connecting with nature is how we inspire others to be hopeful, right?
Yeah.
A lot of outdoor time and catching as many sunrises and sunsets and fresh air and beach walks as possible, and I don't mean to say that in a solitary way. I mean to say that there is so much beauty around us, despite everything else, that if we can hold on to the beauty and fuel the beauty, we are going to find our way to keep moving forward.
That's
to me.
lovely. That is
Yeah, I love
lovely.
that.
If you could come up with one word, just one word, that represents hope for you, what would that word be and why?
So I would say that word is it's either belief or faith. It is this notion that it's faith. I have to believe that there is something bigger than all the things that are going wrong that will help us orchestrate our way through it. That's what I have to believe.
Wow.
Yeah, love that. So looking forward, what are you really excited about and what's next for you?
Oh, next is for me more of the same. As much of this as I can do. I love bringing this work on confidence and the science of confidence to women in all types of environments. So I want to keep doing it and empowering women to sustain their work, whatever their personal work is, whether it's artist or community or social or career or corporate or whatever personal work fills the part of their heart. I want to help them unlock that and keep going. Because, from where I sit, I see it's still hard for my daughters, right? To know how to balance it, to know that it's okay to take the time for themselves to do what they love to do, to find their energy in it. And I also see some of the women who are my age who gave up careers or work they loved to raise their families, And now they have independent, thriving children, and they're missing something, and they don't have a way to get it back. And that tells me that it's so important to help women hang on to whatever it is energizes them, whether it's career or something else, to have the confidence to energize themselves so that they can keep going with all the responsibilities that we have on our plates. So I want to keep doing more of this work for me.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for writing the book. And I think there's a lot of people that will benefit not only just from the podcast, but we hope they go out, buy the book, take the assessment, build your confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, I see a TED Talk in the making here somewhere.
You are very kind. Thank you for having me on the podcast. It was just enjoyable. So wonderful to work with both of you.
It has
My
been
pleasure.
a true pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, let's do it again.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Bye.
Well, that was a really interesting interview.
It was, and I'm really glad that we had her on today.
Yeah, I really appreciate her coming on and sharing what she learned in her research and in her book. And I'm looking forward to unpacking that a little bit. It definitely triggered a few things in me, and our listeners may have heard that. I heard that in your questions as well.
Yes.
And so we are looking forward to unpacking this a little bit deeper in our next episode, in the GEMS episode.
Yeah, and I think
week.
we need to do the assessment, so we'll be
Yeah.
able to talk from a point of reference, which might
Yeah.
be helpful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so more to come. And we'd love to hear from you too. So send us an email if this has brought something up for you as well. And we'll include your questions or your some trends that we see in some of those thoughts in the GEMS episode next week.
Yes, absolutely. So let's keep that conversation going. If you have questions or comments about the show, you can find us on all our social media channels at lifting_leaders. We have so many exceptional podcast episodes coming up with more fantastic guests. So be sure to subscribe to our podcast at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. If you know someone who might find this episode interesting, share it with them. Text them, email them, take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram or tag us at lifting_leaders. If you'd like to know more about us, our guests, or the show, please go to our website at liftingleaderspodcast.com. You'll find our show notes there as well. If you're looking for help in developing your leaders or would like a growth opportunity yourself through leader coaching, please contact us through our website at www.liftingleaderspodcast.com. Thank you to Ari Chance Roberts for his technical support of our show. Finally, please take 30 seconds and follow us. It helps you because you never miss an episode, and it helps us because you never miss an episode. To follow us, go to Lifting Leaders Podcast Show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Then just tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow. While you're there, if you'd be willing to give us a 5-star rating and review and share the episode with a friend, we'd be so grateful. Thank you, Crystal. This was another great episode.
Thanks, Trisha.
Many thanks to you, our listeners. We really do appreciate you. Find ways every day to lift each other up. Have a great week.